Hi.
Hello.
Hi, Kelly.
Hello, Ahmad. Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Marvelous. How about you?
Nick.
Hey, Nick.
Nick, how are you?
Don't let us keep you up. Did you bring your cocktail, Nick? Maybe that's what you need.
Hold on, I'm trying to get the audio.
How long ago?
I've sent a couple.
Title of it?
What's that?
The title of it? Because I can't find it.
Watch on here. Yeah, we're getting a few more folks here. I sent out a blast to our LinkedIn groups. So we will now see whether that worked.
I did that as well.
Good. See if anybody's listening.
Yeah. I'm finding that people are busy. Everyone's busy. Hi, Raman.
Hi, Raman.
Hi, Raman.
Hi. How are you, Emmett? Hi, Nick.
Hello.
Very well, thank you.
All good. So last week's Zoominar produced feedback that people wanted to learn more about hospitality and food and beverage.
Oh, okay.
So here we are.
Cool. Great topic. Food.
Exactly, yeah. And drink.
Yeah, well,
Obviously,
obviously,
we have to analyze the previous presentation. What caused the buzz?
I didn't hear one.
And maybe everybody else can do the same thing.
Oh, really? Nobody told me. I didn't, unless I wasn't listening, but I usually listen.
Because the presentations have certain patterns that appeal to emotions.
Of course.
And some they don't. So one has to see what elements were there that create that kind of a
Yeah, I understand. By buzz, are you referring to conversation? Is that what you mean?
yes, that will have a reaction from the viewers.
I understand, sure.
well, let's see how we can help the industry with the, with the help of Black Opal. And,
Exactly.
with so much of, I think it would be great, Phil, if you can, calculate the experience that with the Black Opal group now has. It would be a statistics worth mentioning.
True. I can probably be conservative by saying a couple of centuries.
I don't know if we want to know that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, of course, we don't want to be dinosaurs,
Yeah, no.
we want to be as relevant to as, the present circumstances we all find ourselves in.
Just getting started, Raman.
Yeah.
Just getting started.
Yeah. So let's give the platform to Phil, and let's start.
Yeah, we've got it's now 4 o'clock, but I'm just going to wait a minute. There's just 7 of us who've logged in right now. Hi, Tamer. How are you?
Hey, how you doing, Phil? How's everybody?
Good. You're in the
Doing
best location of all of us.
Hi.
I'm liking it here today. My first day out.
Excellent.
Nice. Is that your
Nice day.
backyard?
Yeah. Just having a good day, enjoying a little bit of sun today.
Wonderful. Where are you?
Burlington.
Burlington. Are you
did
Phil's
you guys
neighbor?
experience the rainstorm last night?
Yes. Big thunderstorms and everything. It woke my wife up. I sleep through anything, but apparently it was something that kept her awake.
My bedroom was flooded.
Oh,
Really?
What?
Yeah. So I had to remove about 2 buckets of water from the floor.
Really? Yeah? Wow.
Oh, no, that's too bad.
There's Danielle speaking to us from Versailles.
Hi, Danielle.
Bonjour.
You're on mute.
You don't have your mic turned on, Danielle.
Her mic is not working. There is
Figure out how to do that.
if you go to the bottom left, there is an arrow with a mic. Press that, and then when the pop-up comes, change your mic to another one. It didn't work. Oh, I see. Okay. So
Yeah, gotta get a new computer.
Yeah, I was trying to see, learn more about this, putting the backdrop in the Zoom. So I'm gonna do that later this evening.
Oh yeah, it's just it's real easy once you get onto it, and you get to download the image of your choice as well, as Danielle has, of course, and me.
Well, I'll have to think about what I should put: the Yas Hotel or the Emirates Palace, or
Hey, knock yourself out. You got lots of choice.
Both.
I just went to Hawaii there.
as long as the pictures are your own, so nobody claims copyright to the picture.
Well,
right.
I'm going to use that as in what is in public domain.
Even those in public domain, some of them
Might
have
have it.
copyright.
Hi, Bill.
Oh, I'll keep that in mind. Thank
Yeah.
you, Emmett.
Hi, Bill. How are you? Bill Ross has
I'm good.
joined us here.
Hi, Phil. Good to see you. Good to see you all.
Hi, Bill.
Likewise, yeah. Thanks. Well, I think we'll get underway, and we'll add participants as they show up, and which I'll keep an eye on. So let's begin. Firstly, I wanted to say thank you to all of you for joining us today. Last week, when we had our Zoominar, the topic was food and beverage, and also hospitality. And when we got through it, we found out that there was continued interest in the subject. So this week we decided to increase your information by holding another installment. And today we have both Kelly Laughton and Raman Khanna, both of them experts in their own areas. Raman is someone who I worked with together in Abu Dhabi, and he and I were colleagues. He handled the hospitality and food and beverage, and we also had, in my case, I was handling the retail and leisure. So basically, I could say that Raman and I go back a long ways, and similarly, Kelly and I come from a similar part of Ontario and Canada, in that we're from Northern Ontario, and we actually work for the same company at different times, but we're certainly we're familiar with one another and how we've basically tracked our careers. So I'd like to begin today by talking about some really positive developments in our industry. Retail shopping centers have been under a lot of stress for a long time. It wasn't just precipitated by the COVID-19, although that certainly accelerated the trends that were underway. And so as a result, we ended up with a lot of confusion, if you like, or disruption within the industry. But out of disruption has come quite a lot of individual opportunities that we see. And we're here to talk about those today, because those opportunities will provide us with the chance of enhancing our incomes. And we at Black Opal, which I'm the president, have developed strategies to add income on both a short, medium, and long-term basis. And we want to share those ideas with everybody. And we'd like to hear people's reactions to them, and also the experience that they have had themselves in dealing with these sorts of opportunities. So to begin with, I'd like to invite Kelly to both introduce yourself, please, Kelly, and to also add for everybody's benefit a bit of your background and experience, and we will go from there.
Well, thank you, Phil. Thank you for the nice intro. Pardon me. Pardon me. Sorry. The beginning of my career in shopping centers started way back in 1982. I became a shopping center marketing director for a company that was building shopping centers right across Canada. It was called Compo Corporation. And I started off as a shopping center marketing director. And that was a fun job because my shopping center was between two former cities that was forced to amalgamate in 1970, Port William and Port Arthur. So it became a city called Thunder Bay. And my shopping center was smack dab in the middle of those two cities and in a superb location. So everything that I did was super successful. And I won all sorts of marketing awards. And I used to think it was just because of me, but really it was because the shopping center was really well positioned. And many of the shopping centers that we built it was an ideal time for filling out, I guess, B and C markets that hadn't seen enclosed shopping centers. So it was a high time in the 80s for shopping centers for sure. And the food court was a highly productive part, and it was like the heart of the shopping center. And I'm just going to relocate to a quieter place. And so when you think about where shopping centers have their food courts, they were generally in a location that everything in the entire shopping center would lead, generally, not in all cases, but usually it was very, very centrally located. And when we look at, I guess I'm moving on right into the opportunity. A little bit more about my background. I've been doing leasing of shopping centers and working with the builders of the shopping centers and leasing them out to the right retail mix. And then moving over to the tenant side, I was with Blockbuster Video when they came to Canada and rolled out 350 stores in like 10 minutes. It was a crazy time, and it was very exciting. And they were such a hot company at the time. Too bad too bad about what happened to them. But they were a great retailer, and I really learned a lot about the American style of a fast and aggressive rollout. And that was a super learning experience. And that was when I got introduced to working with brokers, the brokerage community, because we hadn't worked with brokers in the shopping center industry. We were the brokers. We weren't licensed brokers, but we were employees of the developers, and we're expected to basically do what retail brokers do. So working at Blockbuster, I learned about retail brokerage and continued to work with landlords that wanted to have the right mix, the right retail mix in their shopping centers. But I also now have the experience of working with the retail chains that are looking for the absolute best retail locations. So Blockbuster was a good example of that. Anywhere from 4,000 to 8,000 square feet, but it had to be the AAA location, that pad on that, grocery anchored shopping center with excellent visibility, superb access egress. I negotiated the sign clause before anything else. Can you imagine that? The torn ticket, if you recall the Blockbuster torn ticket signage. If I couldn't get the torn ticket signage, we weren't doing a deal. So yeah. So now you understand how important signage is to a retailer that knows what they're doing.
I think, the wealth of experience that you've had, Kelly, really informs us well today when we've got such a disruption ongoing with a lot of the traditional elements in our mixes becoming really obsolete. We're seeing bankruptcies and so on. But out of those bankruptcies comes space. And in that space, we have the opportunity to bring new formats that have proven to be very successful, even over the short run of the pandemic.
Yeah, you're very right about that. And I've had the privilege of chatting with Raman, Khanna, who's on the call here, and Phil. We were talking about this yesterday, and one of the opportunities that I see is it existing right now for a shopping center owner that needs cash flow. There's a good chance that the food court, it continues to exist, but it's vacant, or there might be one or two retailers and you wouldn't want to eat from them. So if you think about what a typical shopping center food court has in North America today, they have access to a service corridor that leads to a truck level loading area that has recycling and garbage and wet garbage opportunities for dealing with all the types of garbage that, that restaurants generate. And usually access to a corridor where a delivery company could easily be able to walk into this food court area and pick up. So imagine removing all the food court furniture, having one tenant take over all 20 or all 30, however many food court units there are, and have separate kitchens where you have a gluten-free kitchen and you have a keto kitchen and you have all the various types of foods that we like to eat today, branded, but under one retail tenant, and then an opportunity for all of the delivery companies to come in and pick their order up, forthwith. With PDQ, they can pick up, Uber or Skip the Dishes or whoever it is. They come in, they pick up the order, and they're gone. And so this is a way for a landlord with all of this, all the hoods are there, everything is there. All they probably need is new filters and proper cleaning and, a good scrubbing, and you could probably put together a really great money-making opportunity for a landlord that's bleeding terribly right now with, losing their anchor stores and consequently losing the CRU tenants, because the traffic's not there. If you don't have the anchors anymore, the CRU tenants were designed to live off the traffic that were generated by the anchors. The anchors are gone, the traffic is gone, and the CRU tenants can no way pay the minimum rent and the additional rent that they were designed to pay. So guess what? The bank is not looking very kindly at that landlord anymore.
Well, that's very true, Kelly. And you're talking about the importance of branding. And today there's a new phenomenon that's been brought about by the evolution of what we call ghost kitchens. And some of these operators bring 15 or 20 new brands with them that are established, not so new, such as Cheesecake Factory and others, that will contribute to the power of the former food court location, but under the auspices and control of one owner. And of course, that's rather appealing to the shopping center developer, because he has one person from whom to collect rent and one person with whom to talk. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Thank you, Phil. Yes, it's actually a company that's already. They already have 20 locations open and operating. Jerry and I are working on them together. The brand is actually called Ghost Kitchens. And they basically have three formats. One format is a 3,000 square foot restaurant. The next one is a 1,000 square foot restaurant. And the third is a commissary, so 12 to 15,000 square feet. And basically they're designed to be, and I guess about 8 kilometers, Jer, is that what we figured, between locations, basically to allow every residential, high density residential unit in major cities in Canada to be minutes away from these kitchens. And they have these brands already set up. So they have license with Cheesecake Factory and Red Bull and Coca-Cola and Quiznos. And any of the other brands you can think of.
Cinnabons.
So the products come in and they're basically prepared to go into a type of an oven that does not require a hood. So there's no exhaust hood required in these ghost kitchens. And you order online all of these different brands from one place. You can either pick it up or have it delivered. And they're working very well, very efficiently. So far, so good.
But some of those operators must have preparation requirements, and that's what the commissary comes in. It produces the food that is more complex, made to order, all of that sort of thing, and ready to go. Raman, I'm going to ask Raman to just interject here, because Raman and I worked together in Abu Dhabi, and what he did was he developed one of the first ghost kitchens in existence. That's got to be more than 10 years ago, eh, Raman? You're muted, Raman. Unmute yourself.
Well, I have been telling some of my colleagues in the industry that very soon, with the introduction of Netflix and all these streaming services, a lot of people prefer to order food, and that's where the trend is going. And now with what has happened with COVID-19, that trend has just the pace has increased. So basically, the ghost kitchens. One of the form of ghost kitchen is what Kelly is telling us. The other way is to, as with the food court, or you can take a large box space, which is something like a J.C. Penney or somebody, for a developer or for a mall operator. They just don't have any more that revenue coming from that space. So here is an opportunity for someone to build let's say a ghost kitchen, which has 10 or 12 different individual kitchens, and you can have different cuisines going in there. You don't have any tables, or it's not a table service restaurant. It's basically, these are commissaries from which people order online, and the food is picked up and delivered to them. The ghost kitchens, again, every different, especially when we are going into helping out these people who have problems, how to utilize the space, or how to use the best use of the space. Obviously, we need to look into it and come up with the solutions that will fit that particular space. As Kelly said, for example, if a food court is there, obviously you have to see what kind of mix is going to go in that food space. You just can't say that existing operators, we're going to take away everything and start delivering the food.
Very true, Raman. I mean, brand is crucial, but as well, there are other options. So, if one doesn't have a food court that in their project, or if it's viable, nonetheless, the ghost kitchen can still be added in perhaps another vacant space. That vacant space could be a part of the anchor that might have left, or it could be simply an inline store of a sizable quantity of space that you would be able to establish your commissary in.
Yeah, basically the concept here is that you are no longer paying for the retail space for having tables and chairs. You're just paying what you would pay for an industrial kitchen. And from there the service happens. Now the benefit for the mall operators or mall owners is that while they have no revenue coming in, now they have they can have the revenue, and there are various ways of charging the rent. You can have the fixed rent, and also you can look at percentage of the profit or percentage of the top line as well, beyond if they reach a certain threshold.
And there is a compensation available of the sort you're talking about, because food courts have traditionally grown up with very, very high base rents, very significant extra costs. Mm-hmm. Now the model could be adjusted to be a relatively low cost on the base, with a sharing in the performance of the operations that would then give the landlord a significant incentive to do what we're talking about.
Yeah, definitely. But again, every existing space, you have to take each space and then evaluate it for what its plus points are, and how it can be developed for a ghost kitchen. Mm-hmm. You can't just take one formula and fit it to that box.
Mm-hmm. And I think the other element that isn't quite seen is the fact that the presence of the lender in the equation, who is going to be not necessarily only the approver relative mm-hmm. to the landlord, because the landlord may be asking for concessions, but they may be asking for new capital as well to assist in the installation and launching of these uses. So the lender has to be incentivized to make this happen. Having a single operator owner simplifies mm-hmm. that. And as
It
well,
does.
yeah, the covenant of that operator owner may be hopefully significant and reassure the lender that this is going to work in the long run, because they don't want to put good money after bad. They want to make sure they're investing in the future and the revitalization of the project they're already invested in.
Well, I can say that clearly, if not for, I can't say what's going to happen in the long run, but in next 3 to 5 years, definitely that's the trend that's going to be, ghost kitchens and deliveries.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And
you see, even now, a lot of the restaurants who have survived, or food and beverage outlets who have survived, they are thinking outside the box. Some of them have come up with these meal kits. They have come up, some of them turned themselves into part grocery stores because they can't have people come in. And even when the restaurants will be opened, with the regulations that various cities and various governments are going to have in terms of how many people or how far the customers have to sit, they will not be able to survive unless they think of other ways of increasing their revenue.
I was very impressed with the statistics you gave, Raman, about the performance of some well-known brands during the pandemic. Do you have a few of those to share with us?
Yes, I was surprised myself that there was the Papa John had something like increase of 26% in their sale for the month of April, I believe, compared to the one in 2019. And there is the Wingstop, they had probably around 30% or so. Because they were able to recognize that opportunity. They were thinking outside the box. And they caught on to the delivery pretty early. I mean, pizza is something that most people get it delivered as well anyhow. But, they marketed themselves right from the beginning. And this trend will continue. Even if restaurants open, they will have to depend on delivery. And that's where, the question comes, whether the trend is good enough for the ghost kitchens to develop even further or on a faster pace.
What do you think about? What do you think about the more complex restaurant uses? For example, are they able also to participate in ghost kitchens? I mean, the more complex and more sophisticated food might be more difficult to prepare and deliver and so on. How does that inform us?
Well, one of the things that some of these complex restaurants here in Chicago, for example, Let Us Entertain, it's a big group. And what they're doing is they are preparing these meal kits. So that they have all the mise en place all set in a box for, let's say, 4 or 6 people. And then they have a recipe or an instruction listing for people to basically put the meal together. So that's one thing I think, a lot of these restaurants, the complex restaurants that you're talking about, will be able to do.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think about, the different types of restaurants, the levels of restaurants? How does that look?
Well, some of the restaurants that are very big spaces, they definitely have an advantage that, they will be able to place enough distance between their customers for in dining, in-house dining.
Mm-hmm.
However, the revenue will not be enough. And so they have to go with the delivery. And so they become a combination of, they're not ghost kitchen, but they become a combination of in dining and also the delivery model.
I see. So do you see any of the types being precluded from being a part of this concept?
Sorry, I couldn't hear you. I think it was frozen. Yeah.
Sorry. Do you see anybody who's prevented from participating in ghost kitchens?
No, I don't see, anybody. Ghost kitchens are basically, it's a kitchen setup minus the dining area. That's what it is. they have their websites. People go on the website, for their location. They can actually, it's almost like, they click on the location, they get the menu, and they order from that location.
I see.
There are various ways of to organizing their websites. But the idea is to come up with a mix that will appeal to the customers, because a lot of times what happens is that in a family, when somebody wants to order something, somebody is interested in ordering Oriental food, somebody is interested in their steak and potatoes. And so that's where the success of the ghost kitchen, becomes really important, because from a ghost kitchen, you will be able to deliver multiple cuisines and different types of foods. So it's, whereas a complex restaurant that is a complex restaurant that, let's say a Chinese restaurant, is only delivering Chinese food.
Mm-hmm. You were mentioning when we were discussing this yesterday, the importance of disinfection and the protocols that need to be guaranteed to the customers to reassure them to be able to shop. What are some of those initiatives that you can imagine?
Well, of course, the hospitality, at the hotel level, and of course in certain cities like Singapore and in New York, Toronto, the hygiene and sanitation is very, very important, and they get inspected. But now, since COVID has happened, they will have to be even more careful how they handle the disinfectant part. Various technologies that are coming. There are new types of chemicals that are coming. And also, as I mentioned, that UV light. Now they're in the process of, it currently exists the UV light air purification system, but they're coming up with handheld UV devices that they will be able to use to take care of the, bacteria and other viruses and things. That's going to be important in the industry.
Right.
And as the technology improves, this technology will be available at a more economical price.
I see. So there's a price to pay, as you say, and so therefore there's a financial implication for someone, the operator, the landlord, and possibly even the customer in the form of additional cost to be able to accommodate on a satisfactorily antiseptic level each of these ghost kitchens, and there's got to be a stamp of approval, isn't there?
Yes, sure. Yes, it is definitely, it's going to cost money, but this is something that, it's one of those things that you have to do it, because if you don't do it, you will become obsolete.
Right.
So you have to keep up with you have to build it in your business model, and basically spread the cost over, as you would with any equipment going forward.
Speaking of decontamination, I think that's an interesting bridge to the hospitality sector as well, because yes, to revive the attention, the confidence of customers to once again stay in hotels requires that an assurance be given with a variety of the different strategies you shared with us, to reassure them. What is it? Could you give us a little list?
Well, as we talked in our last webinar, obviously hotel companies, they have been doing a good job even previously. They have cleaning brand standards that are pretty good. However, now the only thing, they have to do is they have to ensure that they put that in their marketing. They inform the guest what they have been doing so far to disinfect. And moreover, along with the UV light air purification system, you have various new chemicals that are coming in. I don't have the information on those chemicals, but if we want, we can get that information. The most important thing is that a customer or a hotel guest, when they come in, they should be able to check in, without. I forgot the word that I'm looking for. Is the contactless check-in. Yes. So they should be they should get something on a code on their phone. They should, from that phone, they should be able to check in. There should be a kiosk that is clean on a regular basis, and they should be able to go to their room, which has been sealed. So it's basically like, they have the message on their phone that this room was cleaned by so and so, and this room has not been opened since this time, since it was cleaned, and that can only open through the code that they have received. And so they can, open the. Obviously, there is people are still working on voice control technology, but till then, they will have to, a lot of the things will have to come out of the rooms, such as the amenities. If any amenities that will stay in the room, they will have to be in a special box that's again sealed. So if the guest opens that box, that means they will have to pay for that, because they just can't put it back.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
This
New
is,
behavior.
and right now there are, for buffet restaurants in the short term, I don't think there will be any buffet restaurants or room service. If anything, in quick service hotels, people will be able to go. I think they will install some vending machines with the microwaves and everything in the limited service hotels, and people will be able to get the food from these vending machines.
I see, and self-handle it. Talking about amenities, the usual amenities that have drawn people to reserve at hotels have included swimming pools, exercise facilities, and so on. What do you see? What do you see as their future?
Obviously, you will have to. It's still, people are still working on this. But some of the options are that, you book your workout time in a gym, that you go in there and, you basically, they will have to go in, book during that time so that they have that machine that is clean for them, and they work out, and then they leave and that machine is cleaned again. So it's not like people are mixing in between. Same thing will happen with the, in the short term, I don't know what's going to happen with the spas, but again, every time they will use it, they'll have to disinfect completely. That's where the UV handheld equipment and UV disinfection systems will come handy.
How do you see these improvements affecting room rate, Raman?
Again, it depends on supply and demand. You see, right now the hotels would like to stay in black. The main idea is not to, at least to break even. So for that reason, they will have to absorb some of the cost. But as time goes by and we have the vaccine and people are, traveling again, I'm sure this cost can be built in and passed on to the customers.
I was really shocked to realize when you pointed it out that the very interesting consolidation in the accommodation industry that's coming along, because it's the brands who are going to have the confidence of the customers in providing all of these various services. Whereas here's the big news: Airbnb doesn't have that ability to reassure because of the wide range of ownerships.
Yes, that's correct. This is the chance that for the brands to come back and use their loyalty programs to attract the customers directly with them or through the travel sites like Expedia and this thing. And here Expedia and Booking.com will be their partners in promoting what the brands have done in terms of cleanliness and sanitation, etc.
I'd like to ask a question of Kelly, just on the same subject of pricing. When you think about the menus that are on offer today from fast food users, as well as the more complex restaurants, what do you foresee as to the average pricing? Is it going to rise, Kelly, even through the ghost kitchens?
Well, pardon me. Thanks for asking that question, Phil. when you think about it, and I sat and chatted with more than one landlord on this topic, because of course they're anxious for their sit-down restaurants to get back open and paying rent. And if the restaurant can only have 25 or 30% of their client base in the restaurant at any one time, because they're closing off every second booth or every second or third table, or however that's going to work out. So they still have all the costs, all the same costs. They still have to pay rent on the whole space. They still have to have, probably the same number of people in the kitchen. So their profitability level, if there wasn't some room there before, it's gone. They're not going to be able to be profitable. So if they can generate enough additional business with, curbside pickup and delivery, that's hopefully not too expensive for them to switch to. They also have the, and I'll bet Raman could probably make a comment about this too. They have to be able to show the potential client, yes, this table was just sanitized at 12:10 by Susie, and there's the little sign sitting on the table that says Susie, and there's her signature. And now whoever's sitting you at that table is taking that off the table, and now you're sort of unwrapping this freshly sanitized booth or table, and there needs to be a visual representation that this has taken place. Otherwise, who's going to trust? Who's going to? So going back to the issue of brands, what Raman was talking about, the brand hotels, I'm not going to trust, the Airbnb. What standards are they living up to? I mean, at least I know if I'm at Hilton or some other big name brand, they're going to be a little bit more careful about my safety because they got more to lose.
Yes, absolutely. Well, as far as cost is concerned, Phil, cost will somehow, obviously as time goes by, cost will be passed on more to the customers. But at least in the near future, everyone will have to work together, from the landlord to the operators to the delivery companies, to make it viable for everybody. The operators might have to ask the landlords for abatement of rent for a certain period of time while they implement all these changes, because these obviously are costing them, and they can share with the landlords, the investment they're making for it to work. They can show their projections, and to whatever extent they want to share with them. I'm not sure, that everyone would like to do that. So that everybody survives, because right now it's the question of survival, and to show that all the steps you're taking for you to be relevant post-COVID-19 world.
Well, I think, at the end of the day, speaking of the cost chain, we always have to take into account the source of the capital. And I mean, principally the borrowed capital by mortgagee to the developer, by bank or lender to the restaurant. And I think at the end of the day, it's a confidence building game where those sources of capital have to be reassured that the candidate who's in front of them, their borrower, is the best candidate to carry forward the program. Not necessarily for the guarantee, but they better reassure them, otherwise they're not going to get their continued confidence.
Well, that's why the business plan is going to be very, very important, what they present to all the stakeholders. And when I say stakeholders, I mean the landlord, the bank, because let's see, the lenders and the banks are not in the business of operating restaurants.
Yeah.
And it's one thing to have 2 or 3 restaurants or a hospitality business going, underbelly, and that's okay. But here you're talking about banks are dealing with a lot of that, and more and more businesses that they can show them that they are viable in the long run. I think the lenders and the banks will be quite supportive of these ideas.
Yeah, and I think you're right. They don't have a lot of choice, but interestingly, the choices they do have are starting to arise. Coming back to our original point is you have these new format retail collections that have the potential to be very powerful. And so you would imagine that, the lender behind the scenes is making a judgment about whether or not to aid the developer in restoring the former food court or replacing it altogether. It's a little easier decision when you're dealing with vacancies such as, for example, in a major store that is left. You can imagine carving out at some cost and introducing the centralized mechanical systems into a commissary ghost kitchen combination of, say, 15,000 square feet. And it's a more straightforward calculation. I think by having one operator, it simplifies the calculation for the mortgage lender to the developer to say, oh, good, we're not going to have to deal with 15 different ownerships here, all of which we have to keep, revolving and just one. So I think there's a consolidation characteristic to what we're talking about. I think the other part is the end pricing, whether it be food or hotel, is definitely driven by the ability of the mortgage lender to adjust their pricing. They too have margins and and limits. So perhaps having a greater focus on performance revenue shared with the other stakeholders might be the glue that holds this whole thing together.
Yes, I think that's what will have to happen if everyone is expecting to do well. Then
you're talking about the idea of adding new hospitality elements to, let's say, shopping centers to bring about a revitalization. Certainly the food that we've talked about, food and beverage, is a more rapid solution. But when you think about it in the grand scheme of things, if it only consists of 10, 15, 20,000 square feet of space, that's while that's a valuable element, it's just one of a number that the landlord needs to put together. So over the kind of strategy I would foresee the landlord deploying would be one where there's a short, medium, and long-term elements to be added. If you were to build a brand new hotel, set aside the entitling process, which is significant as well, but just talking about adding the hotel, what length of time do you think it would take, Raman, for a hotel to come on stream after, let's say, shovel in the ground, starting to build a hotel? How long do you think it would be before the hotel would be cash flowing for the landlord?
Well, normally we consider 3-year stabilization from the day, the hotel, any hotel opens its gate.
When does the hotel open though, after the construction?
Yeah, that depends. That depends on a lot of factors. Again, on the contractors who are constructing the hotel, but generally, you would think that anywhere. I mean, at Yas Island, we developed those hotels, 7 hotels, in 30 months from design to opening this thing, which was unrealistic. We really had to rush. What happened there. But realistically, you're looking at anywhere between 36 to 48 months. And again, it depends on what classification you're talking about.
So the kind of retail initiative that Kelly and you were describing with the food becomes even more important because it's more immediate. It's more in the 90 to 180 day range, depending on which format is chosen. But there are some other formats too that Kelly you can speak to. I'm thinking about the fulfillment centers for the online retailers wanting to have a bricks location within shopping centers. Very much like even the largest, such as Amazon. What do you think about? What do you think about their future?
Well, right now, landlords of shopping centers are crying. They don't know what to do. They're really close. If they haven't lost their ownership already, they're close to it. The banks are you know, bearing down on them, and so they're open-minded, or they're getting open-minded. Usually they used to, for the longest time, they were the most arrogant people imaginable. So I can only imagine that some of them are starting to maybe become a little more humble, and are now looking at uses that they never would have considered. So yes, ironically, Amazon, for example, is now in discussions with JCPenney. So isn't that interesting? So yes, of course, it makes sense, because if you think about it, the locations that these fulfillment centers would be, if they're taking over JCPenney, they're extremely well positioned, well located in major regional shopping centers that would have been anchored by a JCPenney. They have easy access to the highways, so for fast delivery, it's a no-brainer. It makes perfect sense. There's also the opportunity for the retailer, for Amazon or the others. There are others, although Amazon is so big in North America, but in China, Amazon is small pickings by comparison to what they have. But anyway, if you think about the benefits of being able to have a small retail presence where that fulfillment center is, where a customer can bring something back, they can report something that's broken, they can provide feedback about, you know, the sizing of the product or whatever the problem was. So now the fulfillment center has the opportunity on behalf of the retailer to make a personal relationship with that customer. Mm-hmm. So that's one of the benefits of bricks and mortar. You get to see the customer face to face. Now, it is a problem right now. You have to have a masked face, but but still, it's that opportunity to build a relationship.
I think, you know, and I think we've been nibbling around the edges of that for some time. When one of my projects in China, I produced a customer satisfaction center that was essentially the crossover point between online and offline retail. It had a Starbucks, you know, restaurant in it, open space, you know, seating, etc., where people from both worlds could convene in the physical space to interact. But more importantly, the entire shopping center marketing staff were located in that facility. And in addition to that, all of the online, you know, the social media folks in China were there too. Weibo, Taobao, and others were all there. And the result of their paying rent, and of course Starbucks paying rent in that case, was the whole thing was self-supporting, and it produced the centerpiece for the combined marketing, both what we called it O2O, online to offline marketing, for the shopping center, where they could induce a customer online to come on down with a coupon for $25 and buy a sweater, and meanwhile pick up their delivery at no cost, etc. So
yeah, good example.
Yeah, so you know that sort of customer satisfaction center is sort of brought forward into today's world in the way you were describing. So quite interesting. I think, you know, when you remember that what a shopping center is, namely it's the amalgam of a whole variety of a range of recognized brands that sum up to the synergy that a shopping center represents, namely the strength of all of those brands together. It's a matter today of picking the strategies that will again cater to that assembly of brands, except that now there's going to be as much, if not more, online presence as offline presence to support the overall business of the shopping center.
But that's what's going to happen to the food business as well, you know, Phil. That's where the ghost kitchens are becoming more and more relevant.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So from the standpoint of the ghost kitchens, the one question I have for you, Raman, is if you imagine a ghost kitchen is brought into a shopping center context, not in the food court, there is an existing food court, and so that food court is now expected to compete with the ghost kitchen because of the brand strengths and, you know, the efficiencies that each brings to their situation.
Sure.
Do you think in that situation that the food court is going to survive? Is it possible to evolve it in the face of that competition?
very difficult question to answer, Phil. It all depends on, see, in the traditional way, the food drove the footfall into the malls.
The
you
traffic.
know, people, the traffic.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. So at this stage, it's very, early to say. It all depends on what happens if, and when the vaccine comes, and things start to go back. I'm sure people will go back to food courts, but not so much in the immediate. Food courts provide an economic way of getting the quick service and food. So,
And in addition to that, I think with the element that we've not talked about that has always been important to us in the shopping center business has been the delivery of entertainment, the social interaction in person.
sure,
That is wanted, right?
So what I was coming to is that the question here is that what to do in next couple of years till the time the vaccine is invented and it's implemented, it's given to all the people. So in the next 2 years, what Kelly and I talked, and that these food courts can become, for that purpose, these ghost kitchens. And, because you're not changing anything except that you're basically consolidating the offering. And how you might have to make some physical changes, how the food is picked up by the delivery companies, or whether you want to come up with your own delivery setup and everything.
I think it's an experiment, isn't it, Ron?
Yeah. So here it is that in next couple of years this works, and it has the flexibility to go back to the food court scenario if things go back to normal, and I'm sure they will.
Well, that's great to hear you on that, and thank you both, Raman and Kelly, for your input. It's a fascinating subject, and experimentation is definitely at the root of everything that we're talking about, because some of these ideas will work in one place and possibly not another, and so on. So it's going to be quite interesting to see how this all evolves. I think that we've learned a lot today, and I really appreciate the involvement. Earlier we talked about what is our combined level of experience on the Black Opal team. Well, for modesty, I thought we might just summarize it at several centuries. So, you're learning, Kelly's learning, and that of others, myself and others, I think contributes to a perspective that leads one to believe, yes, we've always been experimenters in the shopping center business. The shopping center industry grew up with a series of adventures, and people took chances. Not everybody succeeded. Not everybody will succeed in the future, because that's not promised to us, nor is it promised to us to be a successful retailer. I mean, we see the weaknesses in the retail family out there right now, and we recognize that the landscape is going to be quite different. But I think that experimentation is something that we all need to embrace. By embracing it, it leads to us thinking positively. The creative juices get going, and yes, bets will be made that won't be realized. Bets will be made that'll pay off much bigger than originally thought. And so I think it's a particularly exciting period of time in which to be in our business. We've seen a decline over the last, 15 years on account of the growth of online shopping. Well, all of a sudden, that's been so accelerated, but it's to everybody's advantage. We're clearing out a lot of the deadwood, if you like, and I'm sorry to say it that way, but the result will be a much cleaner, much more efficient, much better suited to customer experience. So I wanted to thank you very much for your participation this week. Next week, we're going to come back to another familiar face, Nick Malagisi, who has some very interesting things to say about self-storage. The one thing I'd like to refer people to, and Nick is here with us today. Nick, I've referenced a few times, and I guess it's the retailer in me, it makes me fascinated by it, but by a couple of particular chains that are out there that are very advanced insofar as the involvements that they have with the customer. They're very, very, what we would call high touch. And some of these buildings from the outside look like office buildings, Class A office buildings. So they're, they fit very neatly into a shopping center context, particularly if what's accompanying that mixed-use development incentive is the addition of multifamily. We all understand the correlation between the two, and also the correlation of self-storage with commercial users. So I think we're looking forward with some fascination next week when we can talk more about that. Meanwhile, I wanted to once again thank Kelly and thank Raman for your excellent participation. It's been fascinating.
Is there anybody has a question for me and Kelly or something?
I just wanted to bring up something that Jerry put in the chat. If I don't know who saw
the
it.
Rajdhani Suite. Yeah,
Rajani. So
yeah.
Jerry, do you want to talk about that for a second? These guys are really interesting.
Yeah,
Jerry.
Can you hear me?
Go ahead.
Well, it's our client, and we've done a lot of work for them, and we did this deal in Brampton, and everything was going dynamite before the shit hit the fan. And he spent a lot of money, and we took over, what is it? I don't remember.
Paramount. It was a Paramount.
Yeah, we took over the Paramount. We're trying to get our hands on it for almost 2 years. So he gutted it, rebuilt it, and the guy's got a great concept. He does well. And of course, with COVID hit, he wasn't able to open. Now, the only problem is you have a landlord who wants to rent regardless. And so we got him to extend the fixturing period, but he has to open, right? He's ready to go. So we heard this week that he's going to open with takeout and delivery. He's going to try it. Now, why he might have a better chance than some people is he has a good reputation in Brampton. He's got great food. And we're going to keep our fingers crossed. But he designed this unit to be a buffet. And we had just finished inviting Oxford, Cadillac. Everybody was going to come down to the grand opening. We had some really good play for him. In our business, and I've never seen this before, and I've been doing this a while, I don't know where it's going to go for him in terms of the restaurant. I hear what you're saying about buffet. I guess he's going to have to change the concept. But how do you change a 6,000 square foot buffet concept? I mean, he can't just survive on takeout and delivery.
That's the Mandarin.
Yeah,
That's the Mandarin.
Mandarin. Yes.
That's the Mandarin. Yeah. Well, I remember how they got hit.
It's going to be hard, but again, as I said, for next couple of years, you just have to keep your head above the water.
Yeah.
And and takeaway and delivery is going to various things you can do. I don't know what their menu and everything, and I know there's a large Indian population in Brampton.
It's a vegetarian menu, but he has
also
desserts.
Exactly, a mithai, and but so there is a lot to take away and everything, but also they can start putting some meal kits together.
Yeah,
which people can.
Good idea.
People can take.
I'm going to use that.
Thank you, Raman. That's good. Yeah.
Yeah, that experimentation is what Raman's talking about, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well,
absolutely.
you see, what's going to happen is that a lot of people are going to do things at home. Yes, we want to have, required, when we go to the restaurant, we want everybody to stay 6 feet and everything because the regulation. But when we are home, do we really practice 6 feet? No, we don't.
No.
So what's going to happen is that, little kids' birthday party, bar mitzvah, whatever, all these things going to happen. And where they can really work is that they prepare the stuff. People come and pick up these meal kits and put them together.
Yeah.
Great idea.
That's revenue can be.
Right.
Work.
Thank you.
Well, thank you again. Those are fascinating ideas. And, the idea of experimentation is a wonderful concept for us all to embrace. But we're not the ones who are actually putting out the money to do the experimenting.
But the thing is, Phil, we have, how many times we have worked, those 7 hotels were, we always had to think out of the box in the Middle East.
Yes.
And, right now we are in a situation which you and I have been used to. So you got to think outside the box and come up with the solutions that apply.
On the fly, yeah, as you say, yeah. Well, again, thanks so much. We hope to see everybody next week.
Thank you, everyone.
In the meantime,
Be well.
we're gonna post this recording on our YouTube channel, and we'll send out invitations so that people can look at it at their leisure. So thank you again. Appreciate
Thank
your
you.
participation.
Thanks, Phil.
Great day.
Thanks a lot.
Bye for now.